How's it going, everybody? Sebastian here, bringing you another unboxing. And if you haven't guessed it by now, it is for my beloved Star Trek. It is the Star Trek graphic novel collection subscription service from Eaglemoss, and I'm really excited to check this out. So what exactly do you get for your money? Well, the first month is $4.95 for one hardcover book, and then every month after that, there are two tiers. There is 2 books a month at $17.40 each for the regular tier, and 2 books a month at $18.90 each for the premium tier. Now, both of these tiers get you 4 gifts that you will receive over time. A lapel pin, a tin featuring miniature movie posters, 2 reproduction metal signs of some classic Star Trek comics covers, and lastly, a set of bookends. And then if you order the premium tier, on top of that, the 5th gift are 4 extra hardcovers that they're calling photographic novels. Basically, they've taken production stills and stills from different episodes and rearranged them into brand new Star Trek stories, which is actually very interesting, so I'd like to give those a look-see. So, with all of that said and done, let's check out what we got in month number 1. Alrighty guys, here we have the incredibly nondescript box for the graphic novel collection. All I did was take off the label with the address on it. And let's get inside, come on. Okay, we have some little airbags, and inside the box we have a copy of Star Trek Countdown and what looks to be a catalog. Let's take a look at both of these, and I will go grab my copy of Star Trek Countdown that I bought when it first came out. Alrighty guys, now that we've got everything out of the box, let's start off with the catalog very briefly. Eaglemoss Collections, celebrating 50 years of Star Trek. Let's see what we have. Oh, that is a nice collection of books, if I do say so myself. We have the Enterprise E, we have what looks to be a Maquis fighter here, the Akira-class starship, probably the Thunderchild. We have Voyager, we have the Refit Enterprise, or the Enterprise A. Looks like we've got a Nebula-class starship there, some Birds of Prey, and some Borg spheres and cubes. Very, very nice. On the inside here, we have Space, the Final Frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. And on the inside of this foldout, we have a lovely timeline of Star Trek comics, starting at Gold Key. At the very beginning, we've got British strips, we've got Marvel Comics, DC Comics, Malibu Comics as well. They published the original Men in Black comics. Paramount Comics at Marvel, Wildstorm over there, Tokyo Pop, and IDW. Very, very cool. I cannot wait to see the rest of these books. And then next up, we've got Classic Trek and a few previews of what is to come, hopefully. Including Harlan Ellison's City on the Edge of Forever teleplay that was turned into a comic series with the help of, I believe, Scott Tipton, one of my favorite Star Trek writers. Very, very cool. And here we go. Here are the rest of the gifts. We've got the lapel pin here. We've got the tin featuring the movie posters, the Star Trek bookends, the classic covers printed in metal from the Gold Key era. And if you upgrade your subscription, you'll receive 4 amazing photo novels that use doctored photographs to create new stories featuring Captain Kirk and his crew. Very, very cool. Alrighty, let's move on to Star Trek Countdown. Now, I do have a version of this hardcover that came out in 2009 with the film, and that is it. This is my copy on the side here. But before we dive into the new introduction, I just wanted to take a look at the hardcovers, and I do like that they do clearly state that it is the Eaglemoss collection down here, along with the IDW logo. Let's take off this shrink wrap. Alrighty guys, with the shrink wrap removed and the magic of editing, I have reread Star Trek Countdown, and it was thoroughly enjoyable, so let's take a closer look. Star Trek Graphic Novel Collection Volume 1 Countdown. And what I really dig is that each one of these images was one of the covers for each of the single issues of the series. We've got Nero, Data, Spock, and Captain Picard. It was also styled after the movie posters for the 2009 film. Very nice. On the back here, we have Worf in his Klingon armor and a little bit of copy to read. The year is 2387. The galaxy is threatened by the Hobus star, which will soon go supernova and destroy the surrounding planets if nothing is done. Spock, now the official Federation ambassador to the Romulans, finds an ally in Nero. Together they must persuade the Romulan Senate to take measures to save their planet. In this gripping prelude to J.J. Abrams' 2009 blockbuster Star Trek, we discover the circumstances that drove Nero and Spock to travel back to the 23rd century to confront the crew of the USS Enterprise. Very nice. Now let us move on to the interior of the book. First, we have this lovely image of the Enterprise E. Now, there are a few differences from this hardcover to the original one that I do own. Firstly, there is an introduction page. There is also a Story So Far recap page and a reprint of Gold Key Comics Star Trek #1, The Planet of No Return, written by Dick Wood, with art by Nevio Zakara. Very, very nice. But before we dive deeper into this, we have Countdown, a story by Roberto Orsi and Alex Kurtzman, written by Mike Johnson and Tim Jones, with art by David Messina, who's done a lot of great Star Trek work for IDW. Then we have our introduction page talking about how this book lines up with not only the Prime timeline, but the J.J. Abrams universe, its creation, discussing a little bit of the motivations to expound on them for the character of Nero, setting the stage for the creation of the book, a little bit about the movie itself, Star Trek by J.J. Abrams, and a little blurb about the sequel miniseries, Star Trek Nero, that describes the 30-year-long gap in the film within Nero's life. So we see Nero at the very beginning of the film, and then we jump forward in time to when Captain Kirk is an adult and takes command of the Enterprise. So this book details that, and last time I read it, I remember it being pretty good, so hopefully they'll include this as one of the collections in the subscription. Now, we have the Story So Far page. Years have passed since Star Trek Nemesis, when Captain Jean-Luc Picard and the crew of the USS Enterprise, NCC 1701E, battled the dictator Shinzon and his army of Remans. That battle cost the life of Picard's trusted colleague and friend, the android Data, and set many of Picard's crew on paths away from the Enterprise. Now let us do a little bit of a review, since it's been many moons since I read this book. In fact, I think the last time I did read it was when I purchased the hardcover so long ago. But I dig this book a lot. I think this was a great way to bridge the gap between the Prime universe, the Prime timeline, and the J.J. Abrams alternate reality. Now, if you are intrigued somewhat by the idea of the Prime timeline continuing, there is a new show coming out, Star Trek Discovery, for CBS All Access, but the post-Generations, the Next Generation crew stuff, does continue in Star Trek Online, the MMORPG. And the jumping off point for reference is that in the Prime timeline, Spock is presumed to have failed his mission of saving Romulus and is killed in the process, and the Romulans have been scattered throughout the galaxy. It's actually very, very interesting stuff what they've done, and it's a nice parallel to the J.J. Abrams film in which Vulcan is destroyed. Now, the main thing about this book that I do enjoy is there is a better characterization for the character of Nero. We learn more about his relationship with his wife, to his government, and his dreams of saving his homeworld with Spock, who becomes a very, very good friend. And you understand that disappointment not only in himself, but in the Federation and Spock, and there is a lot of that pent-up rage and anger, so you understand the vengeance a little bit more, and that is unfortunately not seen very much in the film. The character of Spock is very, very nice. He does feel very Spockian and is very much the Spock of the Next Generation, especially the episodes in which he appears, where he's doing his best to reunify the Vulcan and the Romulan peoples. Also, the Next Generation crew in this book has a great voice, and I really, really liked their characterizations here. Of course, this is canon or not canon, depending on how you want to sort of take things, but as far as most of the story within this is concerned, it does continue on in Star Trek Online, but since we don't have any official film or television shows in that era, it's really, really hard to know how CBS is really picking and choosing their canon. There are some heart-wrenching moments for the Next Generation crew, but Data as he is now, especially post-Nemesis, where he's taken over the body of B4, is really, really well written. I love this. I love Astrometrics, and I'm glad that they used the Generations film version of Astrometrics. Captain Picard is great, an older, more weathered captain who has basically gone into retirement and has decided to help out his friend Data. And of course, they also enlist the help of Geordi and Worf. Geordi helps to build the jellyfish ship and modify it so Spock can go on his mission to save Romulus. And Worf makes an appearance in this book as well, especially because the character of Worf has decided to go back to the Klingon Empire and decide to rebuild the ties between the Klingon Empire and the Federation. So there's some really, really cool stuff in this book. He plays a great role, and his character does come through, a more savage Worf, especially one who's been hanging around with a lot of Klingons. And the artwork is top-notch. I really love the artwork in this book. Like I said, David Messina has done a lot of great work for IDW on their Star Trek books with Scott Tipton. So there is a lot of beautiful, beautiful stuff in this book. So I dig it quite a bit. Beautiful. Look at that. The jellyfish comes through nicely. He's really, really good at blending not only the reality of the J.J. Abrams universe, the designs, but merging them with the Prime timeline look as well. And I dig that. And these uniforms that you see here are used in Star Trek Online, the video game. So there's a lot of really, really great stuff in this book. I enjoy it. So if you're coming at this for the first time, reading this in the subscription service, or you're intrigued enough to go check it out, I do wholeheartedly recommend it. Now we've got some great concept art here for the book. We have our finishing page. And we also have some great designs for the characters. We have the young Nero, the Nero as he appears as Eric Bana in the film, and of course, Spock. And we also get this, Star Trek Gold Key Comics #1. And there is something incredibly interesting about this book. We used to have a copy of this at the comic book store that I did work at. And the one thing I was always fascinated by is that the photo of Spock is from a production still taken from before the series was shot. And the uniform is slightly different. So I've always wanted to know more about this uniform in particular. He's holding a flask here, looking very sciencey, potentially in a lab. Something that the prop department probably put together, or the set dresser did. But the collar is much higher than they ended up being. And the band on his arm not only doesn't match his proper rank from the series, but it is a solid gold band. And what's interesting enough is that they did something very similar to this in the J.J. Abrams films for the rank braids. So I thought that was very interesting. Now, on to the story itself. There is a great little introduction to the story. The planet of no return with monstrous plants. A planet of no return indeed. This man is about to be eaten by a giant flytrap. That's really, really cool stuff. So this is a great throwback to the comics of yore, especially to get the opportunity to read a Star Trek comic from the 1960s. They've done a lot of reprints. They've done a lot of omnibuses of these comics, but it's always good to see them. Plus, the artwork is just great. And come on, I love the phaser designs, the uniform designs. They are green, which is interesting enough that the uniforms themselves, especially the command uniforms, the physical props were green. But when they were shot under the lighting and the way the cameras and television systems worked, they ended up being yellow. So that is how the suits came to be yellow. But I dig this a lot, and I think you will enjoy it as well. This is a great little collection to have. And I'm kind of hoping that they do more of these Gold Key issues, either as reprints in the backs of the books or as completed books themselves. And I think with that, we're going to call it a night. Thank you very much for watching, guys. As always, it is much appreciated, and we'll catch you next time.